Previously on Siren City. I'm stuck. Almost everyone's dead except for me and what I'm gonna guess is about a handful of survivors. I'm all alone. I'm currently holed up in a gunsmith, loading up and preparing for God knows what. They've blocked off the main bridge, so that's not an option of escape. My best bet are the boats near the docks, but even then it's a risk. But if I don't get out of here, who's going to warn humanity about the impending doom? They've proven to be very fast, the sirens even. They're dangerous, and I have difficulty killing them. But I digress, I must continue. I'm keeping these journal voice logs to keep track of my progress and in case anyone finds them. So, onwards we go! So I have to make my way to the docks, and in order to get there, I'm going to have to pass through a laboratory. Well, not necessarily pass through it. I don't have to go inside. I just have to, or go around, or whatever works. And, through more buildings, because why not? Let's go! So I'm jumping building to building, and I'm getting better. Like, I'm able to go jump longer gaps. I'm able to, be more quiet when I have to go near the water. But I only really, go on land when it's safer for me. Basically, when the tides go down lower. But they, will just, spike up out of nowhere randomly. So you gotta be very careful. You have to be quick. Because you have no idea when it's gonna happen. The quicker you are about it, the better. I found more bullets. I found a little extension for my gun. It basically, gave it a longer ammo clip. So I can shoot things more with one clip. It's very helpful, to say the least. And I move on to, the laboratory. I eventually find my way there. And there's not really much to say about it, because, it's just a laboratory. There's just a bunch of drugs and stuff. I don't really plan to go in there. So I just walk past, and I hear a bunch of, sirens talking while the tides are high again. And they're just going about how, it's a great idea to go into the laboratory and just shut off the propulsion tanks or whatever to just get the city to sink faster. Because, a lot of them are just, pulling the city down. That's how they've been, changing tides randomly. But the thrusters keep kind of either push them off or they just undo their work. So crap. And where you guessed it, the repulsor controls are in the laboratory. And that thing was heavily fortified. Well, it was until the flood started. Because, they broke it down pretty quickly. Why they haven't turned it off yet is beyond me. But I have no choice but to go in there and try to stop them. Because if the city sinks, I'm dead. There's no way around it. So I enter. Yay. Anyways. In a laboratory where not much to say, just usual laboratory stuff. Beakers, equipment. They were studying sirens. Which, I did not see that in the contract I signed when I came over here. So, we move on further in. It was a big place, too. It was a solid, 2 stories up and 3 stories down. And the controls were, you guessed it, 3 stories down. So I had to get down there, just to be safe. Then I had, there was a little lock I could put on, and they'll need, my thumbprint in order to, turn off the pulsers, basically. If I can do it. So they'll have to kill me in order to sink the city. And if they, kill me, well, I'm already dead, so it don't really matter too much to me. So, we go in deeper. I find a bunch of stuff. They were a bunch of notes about interesting facts on sirens. And they mentioned this one that was extremely more powerful than the others. Then somehow it gave some of its powers to 4 others. The piece of paper was there wasn't much on it because it was waterlogged and the place is still flooded. Just not as much. They had little draining pipes in there, so it did drain, it just took a bit. And there weren't really any sirens in there, surprisingly. It was quiet. Almost too quiet. But then I see something in the water. It wasn't a siren. It had a tail like one, but there was something weird about its skin. It was something wrapped over it. If you get what I mean. Then I see 2 more. Then I see 5 more. You see where this is going. And then what jumped out at me was this strange, deformed creature. There was too much skin on it. It was pulled back. It was You could barely like make out a face, and there was just another layer over it of skin. And they were fast even on land, so you aren't safe when like the water drains. They'll just like run at you using their hands as legs, and they had big hands too. So they weren't only fast on land and underwater, but they weren't exactly the most sturdy things. They were pretty soft. Like one smack with a bat was usually enough to like bash their head in. And bullets, of course, worked pretty well, which I had to use the shotgun. There was like way too many to not use the shotgun. And they were killable. They weren't that hard to deal with. There was a lot of them. And there were a lot of bullets down there. They were like preparing for this. They didn't do them much, but hey, 3 bullets for me. Anyways, I find a little map. Like, follow this line to go to here. And I see one labeled equipment. I think, hey, maybe there's something in there that can help me. I'm already like 2 stories down, so I might as well look. So I make my way over there and I find a bunch of water equipment. Yay me! Anyways, I find this another add-on to my pistol. It basically just made it waterproof. It made it so it actually like worked well underwater. I also found this like a suit thing. It had a label, wear in case of water emergency. Well, it's definitely a water emergency, so I put it on! Anyways, the suit had a lot of cool features. It didn't really have much in terms of weaponry, but it did look cool. I had 2 like little flipper things. You like press a button and they'll like spread out. It makes it easier for me to swim. It has like a little mask thing, which has about 30 minutes worth of oxygen. It won't save me, but it'll make fighting underwater easier, which I'm going to need every advantage I can take. And it also had like a flashlight, so I could see in darker places better, which, you know, is helpful because the power's out in there, so I've been more or less working in the dark, which is terrifying. Great. I move on deeper into the facility to get to the control panel. I run into more of those things. There were some bigger ones, but they were about the same level of softness. They weren't hard to kill, they were just able to move around more things, which just made it harder for me to get around. It was more just annoying, honestly. After a while, I just kind of became used to them. I get down to it, and where the controls are, where I need to get into in order to like stabilize this place, it's just swarming with them. It's like a nest or something. Because there's just like millions of them in there. I was like, yep, nope, I'm out. I deal with that. And I was like, okay, no siren's going to be dumb enough to go in there. Like, I don't care if they have like some supernatural abilities. There's way, way too many. So I just simply walk away because, well, there's they're not stopping me. They were all sleeping, thankfully. Anyways, there was like another part of the lab. It was like research notes. I thought, hey, you know what? Knowledge. Knowledge is helpful. Let's go see what they're doing. And I actually found some sirens in there, like trying to hold up. They saw me and immediately tried to kill me. So, you know, they were very, very dead after about a few minutes. They weren't really different from any of the others, just the usual stuff. Just shoot them in the face and they usually go away. The shotgun was quite effective, to say the least. And I think they were using this place, or at least trying to use this place as a point of research. Or maybe they were just trying to figure out a way to turn off the jet things remotely. Either way, there was a bunch of notes in there. Some siren, some human. Anyways. Well, I'll start with the human notes. Basically, just like how their biology works. More or less. I won't go into super detail because I don't remember. And some notes about them trying to, like, make a peace treaty. It did not work, obviously. It kept going on about the 4 generals. This goes into a bit more detail. The first one has control over Earth or something. It can manipulate rocks and metals, but it can only do this to rocks that are close and that she has at some point touched. Okay, and I would start reading the rest, but it's all covered in water. Great! On to the siren notes. It kept going on about, like, requirements for, again, I couldn't read it. Someone, like, was, like, translating it before the attack, and they didn't really translate much. All they really translate were, like, the requirements. Requirement number 1, immunity to the song. Check. has at least decent swimming capabilities. I can swim. I can't outswim a siren, but I can swim nonetheless. Check. Has at least killed 2. I have killed well over 2. Check and check. If you blurp, blurp, I couldn't really read the rest of it. I think it was along the lines of, if you find a human with these traits, bring them to burp. Then that translation kind of stops from there. And for some reason, the piece of paper it was on was like waterproof. I don't know what they did. It was like made of some like weird coral, sort of. It's hard to explain. And there was like a little pack thing. It was waterproof, so I could contain notes. So that knowledge is power. I'm gonna use this. So I think, okay, I'm just gonna have to camp out the night because, well, one, I was a little tired and it was late. I think. So I start just basically locking myself in the room. Like I covered up any vents. There was still a good amount of oxygen in there. I was more or less fine to sleep in there. So I kind of like mess around with my suit a little bit, but then I hear a giant explosion, and I just hear a massacre going on outside of the room. Just like absolute devastation. I open the door because like, oh crap, they're here. Like, and they turn off those jets, I'm dead. I turn to see just one siren. And like, either the creatures fled or they're just dead. Like, there was like bodies in the water. I was like, oh lord. And I was like, this was one of the generals they were talking about. I throw a rock at her to stop her because I didn't really know if bullets would have worked. She turns. She looks at me and looks a little surprised. Like, I guess they didn't expect a human to have the guts to go down here. So, she offers me a deal. And I would try to mimic her voice, but there was something weird about it. It kept changing tone. And, like, the voice itself kept changing. It was very strange. I don't know if she had to do it for some reason, or she was doing it just to mess with me. Either way, I wouldn't bother with trying to mimic it. It's just not like some really good voice manipulator. So, this was on terms of the deal. She wanted me to join them somehow. She didn't want to go into detail on how or why they wanted me, but they agreed to not kill me. And I take a minute to think. I could go with them. I could potentially live. I could live a long, healthy life. But what would happen if I did say yes? What would they have done to me? And then, even then, if I didn't warn everyone back at the mainland, who would? So I refuse. I go, nope! Get away from that control panel. And, well, she basically said along the lines as, well, I tried to be nice. I guess basically her plan was just to beat me in submission. Boss fights. General, I think her name had like 20 like different syllables. It was a long name. There was like 7 L's in it. So I'm just gonna give her a name. I shall call her Rally because her name started with an R. Alright, on to the fight. Her attacks included swimming at me, chucking stuff at me, chucking like she touched rocks around the area. She brought like a bunch and just kind of scattered them out because why not? Let's make this interesting. I guess that was her thought process anyways. And whenever she touched them, she could like turn them into like weapons and projectiles that fly at me. So I have to like start dodging around them. She had like a trident. And whenever she like chucked it at me, like the water it was in would like part ways. Desks would go flying. So yeah, don't get hit by that, because if I get hit by that, I am very, very dead. Like one hit, I'm dead, period. And for a while, it looks like I'm winning. I was using the shotgun because, well, that was the only thing that did any real damage. But at some point, I think she just got bored. I don't think she was really trying at first. So she just chucks her spear in the ceiling and the room starts flooding. I put on my mask thing. I turn on the flippers. Now I can at least swim and like breathe for a little bit. She seems a little surprised. I guess she congratulated me on being resourceful. I think I couldn't really hear her underwater. And now the fight's underwater. Her new attacks include more rocks collapsing the building in on itself, but she was very careful not to harm the system. I don't know why. Like maybe there was some like locking mechanisms, like if anything happens to the control panels, like the jets are just gonna like switch to some sort of auto timer, which would make the blinds even more annoying. So she refrains from attacking that specifically. And again, it looks pretty well. Like with my new water equipment, I was actually doing good damage. I even used the bat at some point. I wasn't necessarily more maneuverable than her, but if you shoot her in the right place, she'll slow down. You just have to be like fast with it. And I had one ability. The room was tightly packed to a point where I could just like jump off of walls to move around much faster. So it was really just a game of cat and mouse, but the mouse had a gun, but the cat had a spear that can easily kill them with one shot. So all I have to do is keep ahead of her for a little bit, and at some point she goes, just enough. She tries to do some like final finisher move. She formed a bunch of rocks to like onto her spear to like do some final attack, and that attack like almost killed me. Like I barely moved out of the way. Then I went directly for her with gun in hand, and just bang, one shot in the head. Then she stopped moving. She just loaded up and hit the ceiling. The draining systems activates, and the room drains. I had like 10 minutes of oxygen, so I was on the clock. I press the thing on my mask, I turn off my flippers and everything, and I just walk over and just like poke her with a stick or something. I don't really remember what I used. And yeah, she is dead. She is very, very dead. I was like, what the frick was that? Like, I've seen sirens, but I haven't seen them, like, do magic. And I just see her spear on the ground, and it just flies out of the room. Like, it's just gone. It's like, okay. Before I did anything else, I turned on the jet repulsors, or correction, I made it so they couldn't turn it off. Basically, they now just need my thumbprint. And they're gonna need me alive to do that. So, they can't kill me, but they can sure as hell hurt me. So, onwards we go. I finally get out of that laboratory. With my new gear, my new weaponry in hand, I press forward, because that's all I could do. I'm getting the frick out of there before anything else shows up. Then I see that male siren. I don't know his name, and I'm not going to make up a name until he tells me his. We'll call him Bluetail, because his tail was kind of blue. He had blue hair. He was wearing headphones for some reason. I don't know why. And he kind of just stared at me, like, a mixture of, like, relief and shock, like, oh, he survived. I was like, wait, he survived? And I was like, do I approach this guy? Okay, I'm gonna approach him. I get closer, but I have, like, my weapon, like, not necessarily out of view, but I do have, like, my hand on it. Like, just in case he tries anything. I get closer. And he doesn't swim away. He just kind of stares at me. I'm on, like, a little bridge thing. There's a dead corpse. And it was just a very interesting staring contest, to say the least. Not one really knew what to do with the other. A stalemate, if you will. And then at some point he just asks, I'll do my best to mimic his voice. It was a bit deeper than mine, but not necessarily like, hey, can you kick that in the water for me? And he was pointing towards the corpse. I just go, sure. I kick in the corpse. In return, he threw up like the same attachment I was using on my gun. Except it was for like shotguns and stuff. So it's just like, oh frick yeah. And he goes, if anyone asks, I killed that guy. Okay. He just kind of sinks back into the water. And I was like, what the frick was that? And I guess you'll have to find out next time. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. If you didn't, then leave. The exit button is on the top right corner or top left, depending on what you're using. Click it. If you'd like to see more, then subscribe. If you don't want to see more, then I've already told you the directions to leave. You can't say I forced you to stay here. And I'm Nathan. I've been your host. This has been one hell of a video, and I'll see you in the next one.